Hey everybody, Ed Homewood. Hope everyone's doing well today. Welcome back to the channel. Well, today should be an interesting video. We're going to take a look at the D&A Alpha headphone amp DAC preamp. So please do me a favor, sit back, relax, and we'll get going with this review. Well, before we get too far along, I'd like to say thank you to Apos Audio. Apos sent me the unit for review. They've had no influence over my thoughts or opinions, but in the spirit of full disclosure, there will be an Apos Audio affiliate link for this product. If you are so inclined to purchase one, I'd appreciate it if you use the link. So what is the D&A Alpha? Well, it is a headphone amp DAC preamplifier. It sells for $399. And rather than me read you the specifications, you know what? I'll make a separate page and you can pause and look at them at your leisure, accompanied by some lovely incidental music. Well, an impressive set of specifications, isn't it? So the D&A Alpha is a compact, fully balanced desktop DAC headphone amplifier aimed squarely at listeners who want really serious power. As you saw, 9 watts into 32 ohms, a lot of good connectivity, and a very clean digital performance without stepping into flagship pricing. And it bears mentioning that the bigger brother to this, the D&A Alpha Pro, is a different unit, even though cosmetically they're very much the same, and it is far more expensive. Now, we're going to take a look at the front and the back, and we're going to go inside this unit, but you'll see it's got good connectivity. It's got Bluetooth, which, you know, if you're very interested in that, it does have single-ended and balanced outputs if you want to use it as a preamp. It does have single-ended and balanced headphone amp. You know, it does, when we look inside, you'll see it has a very robust internal design, and I think it focuses on noise control, good stability into difficult to drive headphones, and a very consistent performance. Well, at the core of the Alpha are dual ESS ES9039 Q2M DAC chips. Now that is a 5-volt mobile version. It's not the full-size 9038 or 9039 Pro chips, but it means it is truly balanced. It is a true balanced configuration, and each channel having its own DAC, that obviously improves separation, eliminates crosstalk, improves linearity, improves all sorts of the, you know, any process of the decoding, because you got one chip per channel, so its workload is much easier. Now on USB in, it will decode 32-bit 768 on PACM and DSD 512, and on SPDIF, like all SPDIF, it's limited to 24 192, and for the 4 of you out there that care, it does do MQA decoding. So the internal layout, as you'll see, really reflects some really serious engineering. It uses a 4-layer PC board. It has separated domains for digital, analog, and power, along with, you know, very good controls, XMOS processor to handle the asynchronous USB, and it has a good SPDIF controller. Obviously, all of that done to maintain signal integrity. One of the things that I find really interesting, you'll see when we look inside, is that power is supplied by 2 Meanwell power modules. Now, Meanwell is a brand name, and it's a very highly regarded brand name. So you have one power supply for the digital section and one power supply for the discrete amplifier. It does use discrete regulation to maintain stability under a variety of different loads. It does have Bluetooth, so it does LDAC and aptX HD. So if you do like streaming, you know what, you'll get decent fidelity out of it. The real highlight of this is output capability. You know, this delivers up to 9 watts into 32 ohms. That's just amazing. And it's on the balanced output. And it includes multiple gain settings, so you can accommodate everything from really super sensitive IEMs to demanding planar headphones. It also has really comprehensive protection circuitry, you know, DC monitoring, overload, safeguards, thermal control. One of the nice things it does do, and you'll see when we look inside, it uses relay, so you get pop-free source switching or input switching, which is great on headphones. The line outputs can function as a digital preamp, and I did use it that way, as you saw in the B-roll. So the Alpha could feed a set of powered speakers, or if you want to, external amplifiers like I did. So let's do this. Let's take a good close-up look at the unit. Well, here we are looking at the front panel of the Alpha, and I tried to light it so that you can see the labeling a little better. This has this very shiny, clear cover over everything, and it creates a lot of reflections. So underneath the power button, these labels are on the glass, but the lighting is behind the glass, so it's a little bit unusual. I'll go ahead and power it up, and you can watch it go through its little wake-up lighting dance. We're going to start on the left-hand side. 6.3 millimeter quarter-inch single-ended headphone jack, 4.4 millimeter balanced on a pentagon connector, dancing lights, our power button, and a power button also allows us to change the lighting configuration. Now these lights will dance when the music comes on. That's just kind of on all the time, and they breathe, pulse, and then of course you can have the lighting off if you want to. Now there's a gain button for your headphones, so you got high, medium, and low gain. We have an output, so right now we're on it's PO, which is the headphone output. We can make a pre-out, and we can make it a line out only, so you're just using the device as a DAC, no volume control, and you'll see the lights come on. Then we have on our modes, we have USB, optical, coax, and Bluetooth, and the Bluetooth will flash until you get it set up and connected to your Bluetooth device. So that's a look at the front panel. Volume control, very nice, interesting. I like the lighted indicator so you know where it's at, but it does lack a remote control if you're going to use it as a preamp. So anyway, that's that. Let's go ahead and power it off, and you can watch it go through its power off little dance. Let's spin this thing around and look at the back now. Well, here we are looking at the back panel. Pretty straightforward. On the right-hand side, IEC power socket, master power switch. This little black thing is a Bluetooth antenna. USB in on USB-C. SPDIF coax, SPDIF Toslink. Variable line level out, and balanced output. So the way I used it on my desktop is I had this feeding into whatever amp I was choosing that had balanced in the case of the Cambridge MXW70, which is what I mostly used. I used balanced out to that, and then I ran the line out to my EMA subwoofer that lives under the desk. So as you can see, nice set it goes into and goes out as. Let's do this now. Let's open it up and take a peek inside. Well, here we are looking at the inside of the D&A Alpha, and you'll see power comes in here. These are Meanwell power modules. Now, Meanwell is actually a brand name, highly regarded one. So you've got one for digital, one for analog. Now what you can't see is under here are some relays for the input switching, so it's seamless, no pops. Big heatsink for the discrete amplifier output stage. And then over here we've got our USB input, we've got our XMOS processor, we've got our SPDIF controller and a little CPU to kind of control the action, little brains of the operation thing. And then we've got our two ESS 9039 Q2M DAC chips. Those are the small 5-volt mobile versions. One of the interesting things is surrounded by a bunch of Texas Instruments OPA 1612 op amps. It's a very high speed, high slew rate op amp. You may remember these are the op amps we used when we designed the Duke Audio Q100. So very good op amp. Again, very premium layout, nice 4-layer PCB board. Just well thought out, well executed, very nice. So let's button it up and finish up with this review. Well, as you can see from looking at the units, well thought out, pretty well designed. Obviously, we've got some issues with the front panel and the text and the lighting and all that other stuff, but feature-wise, you know what? This is impressive for its $399 price point. As I said, it's not perfect. I think the labeling, the lighting, you know, while it's visually appealing, I think it makes it a little bit difficult to use. However, that said, operation is straightforward once you kind of figure out the controls and you get used to it and you develop some muscle memory. But I think overall the day-to-day usability could be a smidge better. It might be nice if it did come with a remote control if you're going to use it as a preamp in a small system. But other than that, I think it's well featured. So for headphone testing, I used a variety of different headphones. So for dynamic driver headphones, I used the Sennheiser Massdrop HD6XX. I used, for planar magnetics, I used a pair of Verum 2s. That review will be out soon. I used the FIO FT5s, which is kind of my everyday, while I'm sitting here at the desk, kind of noodling around sort of headphone. Very comfortable, very nice headphone, and good resolution. I think for the price, it's a good piece. For a more higher end experience, I did use the Shanling HW600. That is a marvelous headphone. $1,100 it's a premium price unit, but it really does well. And across the board, I'll tell you, the Alpha delivered excellent drive capability and strong authority. One of the things that was a standout is the bass performance was particularly impressive. It was fast, it was deep, it was very well controlled, and I thought overall dynamics remained intact even under, demanding loads. Now, none of those headphones are super hard to drive drive, but the HW600 is a little bit tougher than the others. I thought detail retrieval was very high, very crisp presentation. You know, it kind of highlights more transient information. You know, I think tonally the Alpha leans toward a forward, kind of highly detailed sonic character. The mid-range and treble have kind of a noticeable edge, and I attribute that, you've heard me mention it probably a million times, the ESS glare or Sabre glare. I think it's that 9039 Q2M. The Q2M, as I mentioned, is a 5-volt mobile chip, so it's not their full-size piece. And I thought the upper mids and highs were more prominent than kind of I prefer, you know, can make the presentation a much more analytical than relaxed. Now, for listeners who value detail, precision, clarity, this, you know, and a more upfront sound, I think you'll find this to be a really nice piece. But for those who are a bit sensitive to brightness, you know, you may perform a warmer alternative. And let's talk about some comparisons. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Before I talk about comparisons, I did use the unit as a preamp, as you saw in the B-roll. I used it to feed the Cambridge Audio MXW70 amplifier. I used it to feed the Duke and Papa D1, the IEMA T20, and the Schitt G-horns. And I used them to drive the Cambridge SX60 bookshelf speakers and my daily drivers, my Philharmonic True mini monitors. I love those. You know what? This performed admirably. It delivered a very clean, very quiet signal. It's got a very good low noise floor, good dark background. And I thought it allowed each amplifier's character to kind of come through. Also, too, it's a nice small size, so it's really easy to integrate in the desktop, really easy to integrate into a small system. So now let's talk about those comparisons. Well, for comparisons, I can only compare it to other units I have on hand. So if I didn't mention it, I didn't compare it against that unit. So I wanted to compare it against two of the more popular ones right now. The FIO K13 R2R, which is a great little headphone amp with that R2R ladder DAC configuration. And I also compared it against the Shanling EH2, which on my edit desk is my daily driver headphone amp, and that also has a lovely R2R implementation. Now, the Alpha offers far more power than those two does. It's far more, you know, maybe cleaner, crisper, highly detailed, you know, maybe a more incisive presentation, but it lacks kind of that warm, smooth sort of tonality that the Shanling or the FIO unit provide. You know, both those R2R designs are easier to live with from a usability standpoint, and they present music in a far more relaxed, kind of forgiving way, ultimately with less detail. Now, within D&A's own lineup, there is the D&A Alpha Pro. Now, that is a completely different unit, even though visually, they look very similar. The D&A Alpha Pro is a real step up. It uses flagship DACs. It uses very powerful amplification, but it is also a true analog preamp stage, so it can take analog inputs. Now, the Alpha itself is kind of a digital-first headphone powerhouse. You know, the Pro is designed as a full compact centerpiece, you know, capable of integrating analog sources, and it does offer a higher level of refinement. So, final thoughts, final verdict on the D&A Alpha. Well, I'll tell you what, this is a highly capable DAC amp / preamp. It delivers exceptional power. It's got a good feature set. It's got good, strong technical performance, and I think it's priced aggressively. Now, its sonic signature favors detail and speed more than it does any kind of warmth or relaxation, you know, like the R2Rs I compared it to. But if you favor detail, this is well worth considering. If you like the ESS DAC sound, this is well worth considering. I do think some of the usability functions, you know, kind of the labeling and things like that, can be frustrating at first, but once you get used to it and develop the muscle memory, I think you'll be all right with it. Anyway, nevertheless, I think at $399 it represents a compelling value, particularly for listeners who want a powerful, no-nonsense digital hub for headphone listening, or maybe for use on a compact, small desktop system that does double duty, you know, speakers and headphones. I think, you know, if you prioritize drive capability, clarity, and, you know, really good performance for the dollar, I think the Alpha deserves serious consideration, and it should be on your short list. Well, before we wrap things up, again, thank you to Apos Audio for sending the unit in for me for review. They had no influence over the review in any way, shape, or form, and in the spirit of full disclosure, there will be an Apos Audio affiliate link for the product in the pinned comment and in the video description. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you'd consider giving me a like and your subscription. I would appreciate that. Maybe you'd consider ringing the bell to get notified the next time I put out a video. I would like to take a moment and say thanks to my current channel members and subscribers. Guys, your support is invaluable. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, there will be an APOS audio affiliate link for this product in the pinned comment and in video description. Also in the pinned comment and in the video description is a channel membership link if you are so inclined to join the channel. In the video description itself, there is a link to the community post playlists. There's some great music there. Check it out. And if you have a great playlist, please send it to me. Also, there are some additional affiliate links in the video description. You guys understand the drill on that. Comment. Let me know your thoughts. You looking for a good powerful headphone amplifier, but you don't have a big budget for it? This may be worth considering. So again, please share your thoughts with me. I've covered all the bases on the D&A Alpha. Nice little piece, really powerful, really powerful. Anyway, please like, subscribe, comment, follow me on Instagram if you want to. My name is Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel, and please take some time today, put on the music you love, and just sit back and relax. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really hope you have a great day.